Well, hello and welcome to ILoveGay today. And today we kind of start out on a bit of a somber note. We were going to have this interview and focus very much on a lot of what Amazin LêThị has been doing in the world of sports, and we're going to touch on all that. But first, especially in relation to her shirt, Asian Lives Matter. And last night was a horrible scene in Atlanta, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So, anyway, Amazin, how are you? Good to see you again.
Thank you. I know this wasn't really the conversation that we wanted to have, but
Yeah.
I think it's important to have these conversations, and how we can use sport as a platform for change and equality.
Yeah. But no, was you and I were talking, but so far, even though it's early on in the process, but it really appears that this was very much a hate crime that had happened.
We need to call it what it is, and I think the media plays a major role in how it frames Asian people and Asian stories, and particularly Asian women, how we're continually hypersexualized in the media. It was, the worst mass anti-Asian killing towards Asian people throughout the entire pandemic. 8 Asian women died. This is a hate crime by a local white terrorist. It was calculated because the person went to 3 spas in different locations, one quite some distance away as well. And we have to call it for what it is. This is in a time when Asian people have been heightened, not just across the US, but around the world and targeted. And then, when you attach an ethnicity to a community, this is the outcome that we're seeing now.
Yeah. No, I know. And that's where, but you've been very out there and vocal in terms of really trying to become and show a positive role model for the Asian, LGBT Asian American and Asian community worldwide. And that's a big part of even what you're doing here today with the Gay Games.
Yes, I mean, very rarely do Asian people hear their own stories, and particularly out Asian people. And, we have to continually hear stories about triumphs and celebrations. It's very traumatic to continually see these kinds of videos that are happening to our community. And I think, we need to give hope to the next generation of Asian kids, where they can see themselves doing well in society.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing you're involved with that's really out there may actually happen in the real world, which is coming up in Copenhagen in August, and that's tied in with World Pride and sports.
I know. I mean, it's been an amazing year. I mean, it's still March, and I've had 3 ambassador roles announced, which takes it to 6. I mean, starting with Copenhagen 2021, with World Pride and Euro Pride, and for the first time having an ambassador track where Asian voices are seen and having these conversations around sports equality for the Asian community, and then Pride House for the 2022 Commonwealth Games, for the first time having these conversations where Asian voices are centered around major sports events. And just this week, with an ambassador role being announced with the Federation Gay Games, there's so much work that I'll be able to do with the Federation, but also with the host cities like Hong Kong. For the first time, the Gay Games are in Hong Kong, and what that means for equality across the continent of Asia.
Yeah. Well, the games are in 2022, I believe, right?
Yes, 2022 is going to be a big year. We have the Commonwealth Games, Beijing Olympics, we have Hong Kong Games, Qatar World Cup, and obviously, any other major sports events in that time.
Yeah. Anything we have to look forward to between now and 2022 with some of the work you're going to be doing for the Gay Games?
For me, it's this continuing conversation around how we can look through the lens of sports to champion equality, and how we can have these courageous and it's sometimes uncomfortable conversations around race, around belonging, around diversity and inclusion. Obviously, I'll be looking towards Copenhagen 2021 coming up in August, and also Tokyo 2021 as well. We're still waiting to see what will happen there. And then looking ahead with all the major sports events happening in 2022.
Yeah. Oh, and you're, I think, uniquely positioned where it may be it may be uncomfortable in some ways for some folks, especially in light of what just happened. But you're constructive in how you're there to try to help bring understanding and help folks along to kind of realize that we can make this all better together.
We do. I mean, look, the past 24 hours has been very painful and traumatic for the Asian community and Asian women, and this senseless violence towards Asian women, it affects all women with the conversations that we've been seeing happening in the UK and Australia around sexism and misogyny and how it's all tied in. That's also wrapped in within sports as well. But we need to use our pain and anger and our trauma to funnel that into creating solutions and what kind of conversations that we can have to change hearts and minds on the ground, and creating policies that create safe spaces and sports for everyone, and also safe spaces for women as well, so we can live our lives without this fear of violence or discrimination.
Yeah, well said. Well, I'm really glad that you're able to take a few moments of your time to to share not only your story, but also kind of sentiments. And again, as we said, kind of some constructive feedback for how we can all move forward here.
Thank you for always having me. It's always a pleasure to come onto your show and chat about what I'm doing in current affairs.
Until the next time.
Thank you. Goodbye.